2025 will see the release of the final installment of the long-running, critically acclaimed, financially successful action franchise Mission Impossible, with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. The film, from writer-director Christopher McQuarrie, the man behind the Academy Award-winning screenplay for The Usual Suspects, will seemingly wrap up the narrative of its protagonist, IMF agent Ethan Hunt, by tying his past adventures across 7 films into one overarching narrative. How exactly that'll work? I don't know. Hopefully better than the Bond franchise's attempt to do the same in Spectre. But if the trailers are anything to go by, it looks like Ethan will somehow download the megalomaniacal artificial intelligence known as the Entity, a threat introduced in the last entry, Dead Reckoning, into his own brain. An act that would effectively turn the super spy into a godlike being. Though that idea is pure speculation on my part, and admittedly a bit too sci-fi for the more grounded series, I do think it's both likely and metal as f***. Not only that, but I imagine it's an idea that would appeal to the driving force behind the cinematic iteration of the Mission Impossible franchise, one Thomas Maypother Cruise IV, the celebrity better known as Tom Cruise. While by no means an omnipotent being, Cruise is not only one of our last true movie stars, but one of the few who commands as much power behind the scenes as he does in front of the camera. Since the inception of the Mission Impossible series back in 1996, the actor has not only produced his own films, but several others as well, even becoming a studio head himself when he and his producing partner Paula Wagner took control of United Artists for a short time in the mid-2000s. Across a career that spanned 44 years, beginning with a bit part in 1981's Endless Love, Cruise's films have generated over $12 billion in box office revenue, spawned several franchises including an aborted attempt at a cinematic universe with Universal's misguided Dark Universe, and has even worked with some of the industry's most acclaimed filmmakers, everyone from Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, and Martin Scorsese to cult maestros like Tony Scott, Oliver Stone, and John Woo, a collaboration that gave us this sick yet unintentionally hilarious Looney Tunes-ass shot in the second and worst Mission Impossible film. I still love it though. Despite this impressive pedigree, professional and cultural respect has eluded Cruise in many, respects. On the professional front, while Cruise has starred in a Best Picture Academy Award-winning film, 1988's Rain Man, and been nominated for 4 Oscars himself, he's never actually won one. Sure, he's earned 3 Golden Globe Awards, but A, it's the Golden Globes, so who cares, and B, he returned them in 2021 during the Hollywood Foreign Press's diversity scandal, so he doesn't have them anymore anyway. Culturally, Cruise's name seems to come with a stigma as well, with many of his projects seeming to perform well in spite of his involvement rather than because of it. Though Cruise coasted on his heartthrob status in the 80s and 90s, his reputation suffered in the mid-2000s thanks to a handful of failed marriages, embarrassing public appearances, and because of his very public ties to the Church of Scientology, the religion founded by shoddy science fiction writer and con man L. Ron Hubbard. While the actor has since become less outspoken in regards to his deeply held religious beliefs, as well as his private life, those associations plague him to this day, actively turning certain audience members away and distracting from his contributions to cinema. Which is a shame when you consider just how extensive those contributions are in every aspect of filmmaking, but particularly in front of the camera where he's been consistently underappreciated. While Cruise's celebrity status isn't in question, his ability as an actor is almost disregarded in comparison, as if his overall alpha male persona trumps what he's capable of as a performer. But I believe there's an argument to be made that Tom Cruise is one of the most versatile and underrated actors to ever grace the silver screen. Over the course of his long career, he's proven time and again that he can thrive in nearly every genre, in everything from romantic dramedies like Jerry Maguire, jukebox musicals like Rock of Ages, to comedies like Tropic Thunder, because of the way those films play off his aforementioned image.
You. Hit that director in the face. Really f***ing hard.
Sorry, man.
No one expects the clean-cut, all-American kid to start a brothel in his parents' home while a risky business. No one would think the action hero who saved the world countless times would be a deserting coward like in Edge of Tomorrow. And no one would suspect that the same charming pilot from Top Gun would actually be a drug runner for the CIA like in American Made, a criminally underseen film that you should all go watch immediately. Tom Cruise's willingness to take on roles that challenge his persona is where his true strength lies. It's a risky business that few of his contemporaries are willing to engage with, and a particular weakness of his closest contemporary, Will Smith. I'd argue the greatest risk and best performance from Cruise, however, comes from his work in legendary director Paul Thomas Anderson's seminal 3-hour epic Magnolia. The film about a group of inextricably linked people in Southern California finds Cruise at his most unlikable as Frank T.J. Mackey, a men's rights motivational speaker and scummy pickup artist who leans into toxic masculinity in order to mask trauma inflicted by a negligent father. The role utilizes Cruise's confident screen presence and trademark intensity to realize a character that is the antithesis of what we know Cruise to be. The resulting performance is nothing less than magnetic and a testament to his abilities as an actor. At the risk of beating a dead horse, Cruise doesn't just pick risky projects. He literally risks his life to entertain us as well, executing stunts that no other mainstream celebrity would be willing to do. An aspect of his career that's no longer given its due because the marketing for every Cruise action flick focuses on it almost exclusively, occasionally to the detriment of the film. After all, it's hard to get excited for a motorcycle jump off a cliff in the last Mission Impossible when we saw the stunt repeatedly in the 2-year-long marketing push for the movie. Even so, the significance of these death-defying stunts shouldn't be overlooked. On the surface, stunts like hanging on the outside of a cargo plane during takeoff or rappelling down the side of the world's tallest building offer some much-needed thrills, scale, and realism to a summer blockbuster scene dominated by effects-heavy films, but on a deeper level, this work calls back to the great silent film stars of yore, performers like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and Harold Lloyd, vaudeville and stage-trained physical comedians and stuntmen who worked without modern tools like CGI, putting their very lives on the line often in an effort to execute lowbrow slapstick comedy meant to entertain the widest audience possible. It's essentially a lost cinematic language that Cruise, a student of film, is single-handedly keeping alive on a mainstream level. But physical stunts and slapstick aren't the only things that Tom Cruise is keeping alive. While theatrical distribution remains on life support at any given turn, one of the only reasons it's still kicking is because of Tom Cruise. In the thick of the COVID pandemic, Cruise was one of the driving forces behind Hollywood resuming film production safely and efficiently. The actor and producer used his power and influence to work with governments and medical professionals to facilitate COVID protocols that would allow his crew to continue shooting on the latest Mission Impossible film, setting an example for the rest of the industry to follow. While the stress led to a very public crash out, one that, in my opinion, was both justified and deeply hilarious.
Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone, and so are you. So you're gonna cost him his job.
It also allowed the industry to continue when the future was uncertain. Arguably more important, Cruise also set the example for navigating release schedules during the crisis. While other studios panicked by making knee-jerk decisions with valuable IP, whether it be Disney devaluing Pixar's brand by sending their animated masterpieces straight to streaming, Universal taking an active hand in killing release windows between theaters and VOD, or worst of all, Warner Brothers adopting a day-and-date release strategy for their entire lineup of films for 2021, Cruise took a different approach, fighting tooth and nail with Paramount to delay the release of his long-awaited sequel, Top Gun Maverick, until theaters reopened, forcing the studio to sit on the film for over 3 years. Fortunately for everyone involved, it was a move that paid off in spades. Because Cruise forced them to wait rather than releasing the film straight to streaming, Top Gun Maverick would go on to earn nearly $1.5 billion in box office receipts, driving audiences from every sector back to the movie theater. Even Steven Spielberg, who directed Cruise in the underrated science fiction classic Minority Report and the less good but still pretty fun War of the Worlds, credited Cruise with saving the industry, telling his fellow producer, Now, do all of these accomplishments and contributions to cinema mean that Tom Cruise isn't a problematic figure? Absolutely not. Even if we disregard things like his previously mentioned failed relationships, public humiliations, and ties to Scientology, an organization that is allegedly, don't come after me lawyers, very likely responsible for several human rights violations up to and including disappearing people. Where is Shelley Miscavige anyway? Tom Cruise is a clearly, deeply weird man with an obsessive focus on the one thing he loves more than anything else: movies. But it's because of that focus that Cruise has been able to forge a career that's arguably unparalleled when it comes to quality and consistency. And it's about high time that we all put some respect on his name. Let me know what you think about Tom Cruise down in the comments section below. Like me, do you think he's a notoriously underrated actor and a savvy businessman, or are you just sick of seeing his stupid face? Let me know. I'd also like to ask that if you liked this video, please click the like button, press subscribe, ring the bell, and share it with a friend. I'd like to say thanks in advance, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.